what would be your advice there for somebody who is trying to encourage forward momentum, let's say, in young adults, but how do you approach a pastor about that?
So when I reached 18 in the church I was in, the young adults ministry sort of stopped, because
Mm.
the people that had been leading the young adults ministry became the senior pastors, and nobody sort of took that on. You can end up going from a really strong, vibrant youth ministry and suddenly like, oh, I'm an adult now, I'm not allowed to do all the things I want to do without DBS checks and blah, blah, blah. And then the church that we're in now, part of the role that we were given was to do young adults ministry, but it wasn't the gifting that me and Dan had. Like, he's incredible at operations and at pastoral connection with people. And I was kids, and now youth. We were like two of maybe 7 young adults in a church of 200. Like it was a completely dead age group. If we stretch the age group right up to 35, even 40, right? And when let's include them, they've all got kids and lots of stuff going on. And so they can't just meet up and do. But one of the things that I've just been passionate about is just connecting with people. Like, it doesn't have to be a service, but it can be a small group in your home or in somebody's home. And the thing is, if none of the young adults in the church have a home that they can take someone to, then can you use a room in the building of the church? Is there an older couple in the church that will be happy for you to use their home? Because sometimes they just want someone to ask. Creating connection that's not just we're sitting down and doing a Bible study, or we're having a preach or whatever. But actually, let's go to Weatherspoons for chips and Coke, which is what I say to our young people all the time. Let's go to Weatherspoons. I hate Weatherspoons, but for the sake of connection, I will go to Weatherspoons. And I've probably alienated half the people that are like, one, what is Weatherspoons? It's like a pub chain. And two, the people in the UK that love Weatherspoons because it's cheap and cheerful. So sorry, but I hate Weatherspoons. Anyway, different topic. So we took a couple of our young adults on Monday, and we didn't say this is a young adults thing, or we didn't make it, but we just went, shall we go for a walk? And we just headed out with dogs and kids in tow, and I say dogs and kids, my dogs and my child in tow, and we just walked for 4 hours together and got ice creams, and as you walk side by side, like Jesus did with his disciples, you end up having points of connection with each other. You end up talking about, oh, you know, there's this thing going on in my life, and somebody speaks Jesus and life into that. They're incredible ways to build community, especially in that age group, who aren't always good at face to
Mm.
face, but are great at side by side, and building connection together without it feeling like, oh, we've got to run a ministry and we've got to do a rota and we've got to have a speaker and we've got to, like, they're great. Honestly, if your church provides something like that, or you can make something like that happen in your church, amazing. But it's also okay to meet up, on a Friday night round a fire pit together in the summer. And you'll find in doing life that we bring Jesus into that as we go. And Jesus is the central part of that for us. Imagine a community where someone in your young adults community gets pregnant and has a baby. Suddenly, there's a community of people that set up a meal train and are there for them without a second thought of it, because they've built community together. Someone gets a new job or loses their job, and there's a community of people that gather and rally and love on them. And that, I think, is what, for me, is the beauty of what church should be and should look like for all age groups. Now, it's a bit trickier for children because parents.
Yeah.
It gets a little bit easier as you get older with young people because they can do a bit more independently. But then as adults, we lose that. We lose that wanting to do that stuff. And I think that we are better when we are in community with one another.
I think if we were to like sum up one word for this talk, it's community so far. Like that is the thing that is echoing throughout it all. It's so, so good. Um, So, what is like obviously you're a mom, so things are slightly different now in life, but what is the biggest thing that you've been learning about God either as a kids pastor, like kids in general, or as a mom?
That's a great question. Um, so I had like this mini revelation a little while ago. I was part of a Bible study and we were doing the book of John. And I find the book of John really confusing because it's lots of like metaphors and sort of pictures and stuff like that. And yeah. So I was part of this, and as part of this, the story of Lazarus came up, of Lazarus dying and Jesus bringing him back to life. But my attention was caught by Martha in that story, and so I'm just going to give you a brief rundown on this. I'm really passionate about it. Probably will come out quite easily, but I'm not going to dull that if that's okay. I'm just going to be me in this. In Luke 10, we meet Martha for the first time, and she's so busy running around doing stuff for people. She gets annoyed because nobody's helping her, especially a little sister, and I can understand that as a big sister to a little sister. And she gets so annoyed, and she's like, Jesus, like, what the flip? Like, nobody's helping me. And he gently but firmly challenges her and says, Martha, you're missing the point. Like, Mary's got what's important here. And then fast forward, we see her again in John 11. So that was Luke 10 in John 11. And I'd never noticed it because the two chapters aren't next to each other and they're in different books. And this is what made me realize it. And so John 11, Lazarus is dead. Jesus has turned up late, apparently. And Martha and Mary are grieving the death of their brother, rightly so. And Jesus turns up, and Martha immediately, because I believe her gifting was hosting, she immediately, hospitality, she gets up to greet Jesus and welcome him, even in her grief. And she is speaking to Jesus and is just like, look, I know that one day Lazarus will raise again, at the end of time, it'll all be fine. And Jesus is like, well, yes, but, I can raise him again now. Do you believe that? And she's like, I believe that you are the Messiah, Son of God. Like, she is the first woman that we have recorded in the New Testament to declare that he is the Messiah. If you had taken Martha's name out and put Peter in, no one had blinked, because Peter does say something. Although when Peter's asked, he's prodded by Jesus. He's like, who do you say I am? And then Peter's like, oh, this is who I say you are. Whereas Martha, without being prodded, without being asked, she's just like, I know that you're the Son of God. So how did she get from Luke 10 to John 11, from being so busy that she misses the point to suddenly having it? She walked a journey with Jesus and she got close to him. And her proximity to Jesus gave her a revelation, because their house was 2 miles outside of Jerusalem. And so the likelihood is Jesus would have stopped off at their home on a regular basis to be refreshed and to have food. And the Bible tells us really clearly that he loved Lazarus, Mary, and Martha, and it talks about them as if like they're family. And so he wept when Lazarus died, even though he knew he was going to bring him back to life. What? Because he loved them. And so this journey that Martha went, she could have chosen to stay busy, and she could have chosen to get offended because Jesus told her off. And yet she chose to learn, get close, and walk a journey with Jesus. So when we see it in John 10, Mary's treated almost like a little sister. Martha's treated like a disciple. You could have replaced her with any of the disciples, and it wouldn't have not made sense. As I connected these things, asked some questions, and read a bit more, my heart quickened of this, like, don't become so busy doing, don't become so busy serving, don't become so busy just doing what you are good at that you forget to get close to Jesus. And so I struggle to read my Bible. I find reading a bit tricky, reading my Bible. I can read a novel, no problem, but for some reason, I find reading my Bible a bit tricky at times. So I've learned in this day and age what a blessing it is to be able to listen to the Bible. That works really well for me. I try really hard to make sure I spend time in prayer. And it's not long and it's not drawn out. I'm not great at that, but it's regular throughout the day. Lord, thank you for what you've done. Your mercies are new every morning. Like, you are good. Declaring the truths of who he is into my life and over our daughter, and we try and read the Bible, a children's Bible, with her in the morning, because we want her to grasp the importance of the Bible and grasp the importance of who Jesus is. And when we see Martha again in John 12, she's still serving. She's still doing the very thing that she's called to do. Her gifting is hospitality, is looking after people. She welcomes people into her home. She didn't have to do that. And yet this time she's doing it with a different spirit, with a different sense about her. And there's a total difference between the Luke 10 Martha that we meet and the John 12 Martha that we see. Like any friendship, any relationship that you have, you can know that person, but not have an intimate relationship with that person. And I'm not talking romantic, I'm talking friendship. You can have friends that you text all the time, like, how you doing? But unless we stop and make intentional time to spend with them, our relationship doesn't deepen in the same way. It stays fairly surface, without intention, without us being intentional about it. And so I've just felt this real challenge and also excitement of, like, be close to him, stay close to him, journey with him like the disciples did. They got the privilege of getting to physically walk next to Jesus, and we have the privilege of Jesus being with us all the time. I am encouraged, I am challenged, I am excited that my life can be one that my revelation comes, you are the Lord, the Messiah. When hard times comes, you are the Lord, the Messiah. You are my God. I'm not going to walk away or throw this in the trash, because you are who you say you are. And my revelations come from my proximity with you, rather than standing on the sidelines and just doing the good stuff. It's good stuff, and serving and doing, but actually being with him, being close to him. So that's something that I have learned and been excited about, and had the privilege of asking more questions and sitting under Bible teachers and asking those questions. And I know it is a privilege, but I just have been so enamored by the story of Martha, and she just gets such a hard time so much. In the Luke 10 story, Martha didn't pay attention. Oh, silly Martha. Martha missed it. Martha missed it then, but she didn't miss it next time. And I would rather be a Martha who gets it wrong, corrects that, and grows in proximity to Jesus, than somebody who just stays on the sidelines all the time.
That's so funny in an ironic way, because last time I was preaching in church, I talked about Martha and Mary, and it's something that I've been journeying through too. And even in that first reference in Luke, something that I picked up on that I never had before was Martha opens the door, but she runs off.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as you said, the second time, Martha again is the first to run at Jesus and be like, Jesus. But this time, instead of scurrying off and doing what she thinks she has to do, she knows. She knows she gets to do it. She gets to be hospitable. She gets to serve, but she also knows who God is. And the difference between that is extraordinary. And I know that there are people journeying on here, listening to this, watching this, no matter where you are in the world. Scrap the culture. It's the same story when it comes to you and
Yeah.
God. You know, God is not limited to a mega church in America. We love you, mega church peeps, but he's not. You know, he's not limited to a Pentecostal church. He loves every single one of you. If he could have the choice, I bet he just wants one church. He doesn't have a denominational eye. He has a one church focus eye, and the blessing that comes from that. But I love that. You know, I'm a big fan of habits, big fan of Sabbath, you know, resting, taking intentional time with God. And so, speaking of habits, let's go towards the health side. So we talked a little bit at the start about CrossFit. How did you get into it?
So there was a lady at our church that I'd gone out for coffee with her, and I was like, "You look amazing," and you know, and what have you been doing? And she was like, "I've been going to CrossFit because I wanted to keep up with my kids." And I love the idea of health for purpose and not just for aesthetic. You know, obviously we all want to look good, but actually, am I going to be able to keep up with my daughter going forward? She's full of beans. She's very fast. She's on a bike. I want to be able to keep up with her when I'm running. Now, asthma aside, I also realized that in order to keep strong, I've had to just keep going with stuff. Otherwise, my health conditions would take over. And so I joined CrossFit back in October 22. And I have fallen head over heels for this thing. Like, I know it sounds strange, but I absolutely love it. And I'm celebrated for my strength there, which is really nice. Being strong as a teenage girl was weird, people. Being strong as a 31-year-old woman is celebrated in these CrossFit settings, which is amazing. So I just go to an all ladies CrossFit gym, and there's a coach. I have to have coach sessions just because of my health. And so she's always there. So I was there today. I try and go 2 to 3 times a week to that. And then I try and walk. And I mean, I'm never sat still for very long because I've got a 4-year-old, and we try really hard to limit the amount of TV she watches, which means we're out a lot. That's how I got into it. And it was just literally seeing somebody else going, how are you doing this? You've got 2 kids and you're keeping up, and you look healthier and you look well, and like, talk to me about that. And so, yeah, I've been going for about 18 months now, and absolutely love it.
There's a couple of things that you said there that I want to pick up on. And the first thing, for an encouragement for the listeners, like, we're not telling you to go to CrossFit. And please don't roll your eyes and go, oh, not another pastor, another CrossFitter. My goodness. I'm not personally a CrossFitter. You all know that if you follow me on Instagram, but I am somebody who promotes fitness. And I think it's actually quite ironic, because I would say similar to you, Elaina, that, growing up, it was very much, you've got to be stick thin. And now it's like, no, the more built you are, the better you are. Both can be unhealthy. So how do you maintain a healthy habit of fitness without making it your identity?
So I have struggled massively with disordered eating over my late teens. So I struggled with binge eating, and it really did take over my life. I've had therapy to work through that as an adult. And so as a teenager, I used to sort of starve myself during the week because I needed to be thin. I look back at pictures of myself then, and I go, what was I seeing? Because I looked fine. Like, what was wrong with me? But the culture I grew up in, that sort of noughties, like, anorexia is cool sort of thing. And I was never a small girl. I've never been little in that sense. I've always been quite muscular. I've always been quite strong. And so I saw those as bad things. And I only managed to maintain my weight. And I don't talk about weight very often. I only managed to maintain the way I look because I was starving myself midweek. When I met Dan, something shifted for me, and it just easily, this thing stopped, and I stopped having these binge eating episodes. Food stopped being the be all and end all. I'd sort of replaced binge eating with Dan. I became a bit obsessed with him in a good way, not in like a stalker way. And I then started going to the gym. Dan did weightlifting, and I wanted to give it a go, and started to discover I was quite strong, and I preferred weightlifting to cardio, and I hated running. So this was a really nice option. And I wasn't dancing anymore. I used to do dancing as a teenager, and I'd stopped doing that because it was very expensive. And I found something that I love doing, and so continued doing that. And so we were the couple that, before having Abigail, we were up at like 5:30 in the morning to go to the gym before work. I couldn't do that anymore. I was probably at my healthiest and fittest. I was leading sort of gym classes, and I was vegan for quite a long time to help with my asthma. I know that sounds strange, but dairy and inflammation and stuff. I'd done some research into it. So we were plant-based in the way that we ate. And I was at my fittest and healthiest before getting pregnant with Abigail, which probably helped with that. Beginning of 2019, got pregnant, really healthy pregnancy. Like, I kept active. I enjoyed being pregnant. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but I enjoyed it. And that was all fine. My birth was good. And then I started to really struggle after having her with postnatal depression. And my health visitor was amazing and got me out. I really struggled getting out of the house. And so she was born December 2019. So if you're looking at time frames, we are 3 months away from going into lockdown, which none of us knew at this point. And I started to get a routine going, started getting out walking, started going to baby massage classes. managed to finally start going to church. I was actually terrified to go to church with a baby. I was worried people were going to take it off me. And then lockdown hit and I felt completely out of control. Dan got really sick. We know it's COVID now, but at the time we weren't sure because the testing was so like lax at the beginning. And as an asthmatic, I'd been told if you get COVID, you'll die. So I was pretty terrified, which fed into an anxiety I had around death anyway, and fed into this anxiety around being able to look after my daughter. And I spiraled into binge eating again. And I really, really hurt my body quite a long time. I was binge eating for a good 18 months. And that became apparent in the way I looked, because I wasn't starving myself and I wasn't able to exercise in the same way. And so it became apparent more quickly. And we only realized that it was an issue when we had a foster child come to our home and I realized that she was hiding food. And Dan was like, "How do you know that?" And I was like, "Oh, because that's what I do." And it was that sort of moment. So I started having therapy. I went to a therapist that dealt with eating disorders, and a lot of my eating disorder was to do with how I felt emotionally, and so worked through a lot of that. And I still find food tricky at times. So I cannot live in a place of restriction. I don't think it's healthy for anyone to live in a place of restriction. I think moderation is key, but as someone who struggled with an eating disorder, moderation is tricky. And so I've had to learn techniques of how to help myself. I've learned the triggers that I have. I've learned that if I have too many fizzy drinks, that's a real trigger for me because I associate fizzy with lots of food. It's weird. I've done really, really well over the last sort of year or so. I've had a couple of tricky moments and episodes where I've sort of gone back into some of those old habits. Something I've had to give to God, something I've had to ask God to help me with. I've had to be open and honest with people around me, which was scary to have conversations like that with people. Because what will they think of me? And my answer was to like, oh, let's extreme diet. Well, I've done the diet pills and I've done the extreme only eat meat diets and I've done you name it, I've probably done it. I've really hurt the body that I have by doing things like that. And having a daughter was like a massive awakening for me in the sense of like, I don't want her to grow up with the same issues that I've had. So I don't comment on the size of her body ever. I say that she's strong, she's brave, she's beautiful, she's clever, she's funny. And she thinks that that's the best thing. And she thinks mummy being strong is the best thing ever. We don't talk about good and bad food in our home. We talk about nutritious and fun foods. So we need nutritious food to look after our bodies and keep them healthy and strong. We also need the fun foods because they make our brains feel good and they make our bodies feel good for a short period of time. But we have to have those things in moderation. And I watched my daughter, this God-given gift, this child who was made in the image of God, and was like, I do not want her to end up in positions I've been in because I have not been able to get my act together on this. And so
Yeah.
I've worked really hard for her, but also for myself. I want to feel good. I want to be healthy. I want to be well. I want to do the best that I can. And the thing is, bringing it back to Jesus always, but how am I going to run the race God has called me to if I'm not looking after myself? I am no expert on it. I'm still journeying this. In the moments where I feel like food has taken complete hold of me, speaking it out to somebody has helped break some of that for me. I want it to last. And I want to be able to hold my 20-kilo 4-year-old. I want to be able to run in the park with her. The longevity of my health is more important to me now than my aesthetics. Yes, there's things I might want to change, but actually that shouldn't be at the detriment of me. My hope is that the generations coming up won't have the same problems. We've got more body positivity and we've got more encouragement and more understanding around food as well, which is helpful. And just treating my body with the respect it deserves as a creation that God has given me is the one thing I have that I only get one of this body, and I don't want to add any more stress or strain to my body that's unnecessary. So
Oh, so good, and thank you so much for being honest. Um, the listeners know this, I don't think you do know this actually. So I have the exact same story as you in
well,
terms of an eating disorder, same age, same thing. And obviously, I've not been pregnant, so who knows what could happen. But that it's funny that you even say pregnancy and having a child has helped, because up until, well, how I would put it is I had the eating disorder era of me, and then I had the woo, let's go exercise era of me, and now I'm in the probably the healthiest I've been, where I may be the heaviest I've been, but also the healthiest in terms of my faith, in
yeah,
terms of like exercising used to be a habit that I did every day because of the thrill. Whereas
yeah.
now I exercise because I know the benefits of it, but equally I'm as quick to go and get a chocolate bar out of the cupboard and like not care that I'm eating the chocolate bar, maybe even two. You know? But I think what's beautiful of your story is that you're saying I'm a work in progress. And there's not many pastors that are able to say, hey guys, I'm a work in progress and I'm not afraid to talk about it. So thank you for being honest there, because I think it will encourage so many people.
I hope so. And yes, I have the title of pastor. One of the gifts I feel God has given me is a gift of authenticity, of just being real with people, and that is slightly unnerving for some people, and I understand that. And for a generation that has grown up with, we don't acknowledge emotion and we don't deal with it, and I feel that God has given me some of that, so I'm quite happy and open to talk about my experiences of therapy. I still have therapy now because I'm a very emotional person and I need that safe soundboard. Although I have the title of pastor, I'm very much a real person, and I don't ever want someone to look at me on a platform and go, she's got it all together. Like, I argue with my husband. I get cross at my daughter. As someone who has a degree in child development and has done all of the training on trauma, I still shout at my child sometimes. I still have those moments of real insecurity and struggle. And I have those moments where my old habits come back to bite me. And I don't want anyone to ever look at me and think, I can't attain that. No, you shouldn't have to. You should only attain the very best of who God is calling you to be. And all of us are works in progress. All of us have still got things to learn. All of us are still battling with some things that sometimes come back, and we have to resubmit those to the Lord, and we have to re-journey those things. But so often we only see the highlight reel of people's lives, and we know social media is chronic for that. And yet I don't want to be a highlight reel person. I want to be real with
Come on.
people and to help them see that, the amount of mums that afterwards I spoke to and said, I found the first 6 months of my child's life awful. Why does no one say this? Everyone just puts these beautiful pictures of their laughing, happy babies, and nobody's saying, but meanwhile, I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning crying because everything hurts and I'm tired and I'm sad and I don't know how to deal with this. And actually being authentic and real, I just think will only help people. A pastor is not someone to attain to. A celebrity Christian is not someone to attain to. But the only person that we should be trying to be like is Jesus. And he should be our only role model.
Yeah, yeah. And I know for yourself, like you're mainly based within your own church, but you have traveled a little bit, and I'm sure you see other churches when you can. So, what is the most exciting thing you're seeing about church in Europe right now?
I think a real sense of unity, a real sense of coming together, this getting over denominational vices, people just realizing that Jesus is why we're doing what we're doing, and being part of
Mm.
that, seeing them break habit of generations gone by, seeing them walk into freedom with Jesus, with other men and women, with other children, with other young people, and just seeing a real sense of God's unity and wanting to see the church win, not a particular type of
Hmm.
church, but actually this continual journey. It's language I'm hearing over and over again, of journeying and discipleship with Jesus, and it's so exciting and it's so wonderful to see. And the Church of Jesus Christ will only strengthen because of those things.
As we finish today, Elaina, I wonder how you could encourage somebody, say they're listening to this podcast, and I don't want to be geographical, but at the same time, my heart is for the UK and Europe and Ireland, and that's where I'm at. So I'm thinking there, as we always talk about this. But for those of us who are not, again, in big, large churches, we are in small churches, we may be the only person of our age in a church.
Yeah.
How do you make the most of the church family that you're in right now?
In any family, it's unusual to have someone your own age in a biological family. And we learn and we glean from grandparents and parents and siblings, and and like you said, the church is a family. And so you might be the only one of your age, but does that mean you can't be friends with the 70-year-old in the church who you learn something from? Some of my most incredible moments have been with older people who have just put their arms in with you and journeyed this journey together, and have just gone, we're here, we're for you, we're with you. And so I would implore anyone in any sort of church to open up your boundaries, open up your arms intergenerationally. We wouldn't expect a family in our home to be filled with 17-year-olds or 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds. We expect families to be intergenerational. And I think if we can grasp that within a church family, we'll be at more at ease with that, whether we are the only one of our age or not.
So good. Okay, Elaina, how can we be praying for you, your family, or your church family right now as we finish?
Well, we've just entered a new season of leadership. We're 6 weeks in. It's been a heck of a start for Dina, bless her. Literally the first day someone died. So we've had a bit of a start, but you know what? Right people, right place, right time has been God's message to us in this. But saying that, me and Dan have been gifted a sabbatical for June and July. It's just come at a really awkward time, in the sense of we just want to get going with them, but we also feel like God is saying it's time to rest and it's time to recuperate, and then it's time to go. So we're traveling as a family. We're going to go and visit some friends in Canada. We've saved really hard to make this happen, and just your prayers over that, prayers of protection, prayers for Dina as she continues to lead and 2 members of her team sort of disappear for 2 months, and just prayers for us that we would be obedient to the voice of God in this, always, but in this season especially.
So, guys, that is partial little nuggets of Elena's story, but also her incredible wisdom. Elaina, thank you so much for joining us today. And in the meantime, guys, you know what to do. Keep smiling, because your smile is so important. Spread love and not hate in 2024, and I will see you all very soon for another episode. Bye, guys.